If you're a Pittsburgh baseball fan, then this is the podcast for you. Make your way down, grab a beverage, and get ready to talk Pirates with myself, Craig Toth, and Scott Jackson, two of the biggest fans you'll ever meet. This is Bucs in the Basement.
Now I see the changes in this town. They change, they say one thing, but then the next day it's different. They change, but they don't know what they want. All they do is change. Going left, going right, travel day, travel night. That's where we'll go. No excuses, no goodbyes, no one cries, no one lies. We'll never know.
Growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents up at our camp in the Allegheny National Forest. We only got one radio station that would come in clearly, played two things, actually three: polkas on Sundays, Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story, and Pirate Games. And those are some of my favorite memories. I still hear a polka and I am transported back there. I hear any story and I think about the things that go behind it. And I think about the Pittsburgh Pirates. And to me, it feels like that there are stories within the Pirates that people have kind of closed the book on. And I think there are some things still left to tell. And we're going to talk about that tonight. First off, Scott, how you doing today, brother?
Better than I deserve. It's almost summer. The Pirates are scoring runs. We have 1-1 overall picks that are performing. It's a good time. And I think I know what radio station you're talking about, because I think that's the same station that I listen to the Pirate Games on my way home from work, because it comes in clear.
I think it's like 102.1 Bigfoot. Like, I think it's a country station now or something.
97.5 The Hound out of St. Mary's is the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, St. Mary's. Yeah, we couldn't get St. Mary's because we were actually like trapped behind the ridgeway, like the mountain or something there. So there was like a little bit of a block there. So had to go out to Du Bois. But I mean, you basically, talking about 1-1s performing, and that's kind of where my mind was going. And what we were talking about before the show is something we talked about last week with Henry Davis possibly needing a little bit more of an opportunity, with Bart not performing as well. Never want to see it be an injury that gives a person, kind of their opportunity to perform. But I mean, you kind of do have to take advantage of that. And in that limited, smallest of samples, I mean, Henry Davis is performing.
Absolutely. In his last 7 games, 400 batting average, 1.078 OPS, 3 runners thrown out on the base paths, and he's cut down on the strikeouts to a 13% K rate. So we're seeing him step up. We talked last week about how important his defense was and how it was a different feel for the game when he's behind the plate, because the pitchers like how he calls games. He's got that arm. He's able to keep the running game more in check. And now the bat's coming around. Now I was just telling you before we started, this off day is perfectly placed so we can imagine and fantasize about all of the glory of the Henry Davis future to come. And we all hope that it is on its way. And we wish the best for Henry Davis. But I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to try to be realistic with my expectations. But hey, if these tweaks that he's made to his stance over the last couple of weeks, and these difference in his approaches, if those are going to stick and those are going to prove to be beneficial to him, yeah, we might have a catcher for the future.
And that's something we've been, wanting and hoping for him, and not realizing, why he wasn't able to take that step. Mashing the ball in AAA, getting up here, looking and kind of like feeling overwhelmed, because that was something like during last season. Like I know that Henry is a very passionate, a very gutsy player, but we were actually seeing him like kind of like slamming the bat down last year, like grinding his hands into the bat and just kind of getting a little bit frustrated. And because he was working so hard, and it's never been about the work ethic,
Mhm.
it's been more about just like little tweaks, little things that he needed to do. Seeing him now, saw either a video or a few pictures out there, has kind of moved away from the plate a little bit, has closed his stance. I know that he had started standing a little bit more upright even before that, but I mean, he pretty much had a very wide, very low stance and seemed to be doing a lot with his arms. And if he's getting, the bat through the zone with those arms, a lot of times that does become that kind of like pool ball that you are going to see with him a lot, as opposed to kind of being a more hitter as opposed to masher, where you're hitting where the pitcher gives you the pitch, whether it's on the outside of the plate and you hit it the opposite direction. Because that's one thing with Henry is it's never going to be for a lack of power. And I think that he was just maybe just trying to do a little bit too much to try to bring that power as opposed to letting it come naturally. I know that there's a lot out there with a narrative of, what Adam Frazier did for him. And of course, the immediate reaction from fans is like, well, the analytics department and the hitting coaches and all this couldn't do this for him. And I just think like back to when I had John Wayner on one time, is like a lot of times he's just like, yeah, we learned a lot of the stuff from the other guys kind of in the clubhouse because they're with you all the time and seeing you work out, and they're going into the batting cages with you and watching your swing. So, it's not like that other stuff wasn't tried. It wasn't like it didn't work at any point in time. We're not even really sure if this is going to work because, like you said, we have this day off and we can, wax poetic about the rest of Henry Davis's career. But then also there's that other side of it where the league will start to push back because they will realize kind of what he's doing differently. So he may need to adjust again. So yeah, the book is not closed on him. His story is not written. Didn't get a lot of at bats in the minors. It still doesn't have a ton of at bats in the major leagues. But definitely want to see him at least get some sort of run here
Mhm.
at his natural position. And hopefully I'll knock on wood again because everybody talked about how, Bart hasn't been able to stay on the field, was injured last year, has a little bit of back tightness. This one was a little bit more of a freak injury with the concussion, but it's not like, Hank has been the picture of health either. So hopefully get both of them back, both healthy, and we can really see, what this catching combo or trio with Endy up now will look like. But I think that at this point in time, it's like almost like Davis has at least through his defense and now seeing what he's done with the bat has earned a little bit more of a run that he had been given previously.
And that's something we're seeing more with Donnie Kelly is his willingness to give guys a little bit of runway and play the hot hand a little bit more and really see, okay, you got a little bit of time. Let's give you, you know, 4 or 5 games so that you can actually string together some at bats and really see what you can do. And it makes sense. I understand maybe where Henry was coming from with his more crouched batting stance because launch angle has been such a buzzword in the hitting sphere. And so I guess in college, where the quality of pitching that you're facing is, of course, less than the major leagues, if you crouch down, you have more of an uppercut swing, you're going to drive the ball farther. He's adjusting to major league pitching. He's got to stand up. He's got to straighten up and, yeah, back off the plate a little bit and, put the bat to the ball and focus on driving the ball up the middle instead of being pull happy. And it's just going to come. That big home run that he hit, when he entered the game the other night, uh, to left center, more to center than left. That was perfect. If you can do that kind of thing, drive into those gaps, that's going to be a key to success. But yeah, if he can have games like that on a semi-regular basis and bring the defense and bring the game calling where he has been. It says a lot about his abilities behind the plate when Paul Skeens wants him to be his personal catcher.
Yeah, and with Henry being up here a 1-1, you've got Paul Skeens up here a 1-1. You're getting some of guys that have been top prospects and maybe have fallen back because of injuries with like Burrows, and now you're getting Ashcraft. And before we hopped on the show here, we were talking like about the Burrows Ashcraft thing, because they're guys that are kind of stretched out, but they also can play in the relief role. We saw Burrows with that at the end of last year. Guys with injury histories, so we don't know what the ceiling of the innings limit is for them. Getting some work out of them now, maybe using them in a starter's role for now, and then eventually they kind of go back to the bullpen. But with Ashcraft, the one thing that really kind of sticks out to me is something that I know that I've mentioned before and it's been talked about on the show before, is what other teams would do with some of their top prospects, which would be bring them up and use them as relievers. I mean, even if the person was going to be a starter, they let them kind of grow into that role just through, facing major league hitters. I know a guy like a Garrett Crochet, a Chris Sale was used as a reliever. We talked about the Brewers who, at times have brought up some of their pitching prospects and put them into what they saw as positions of need, but also didn't limit what they can do. I do like that, kind of like a de facto, whatever it be, like fifth, sixth starter, where it's like you can kind of rotate Burrows and Ashcraft into that starting role. And then you still have, Carmen Mlodzinski stretched out as a starter in AAA. And in his first two starts in AAA, hasn't given up a run. We do know that the stuff is there with him. Obviously, everybody knows my feelings by now is that he's probably a bullpen arm, but I don't see anything wrong, especially for this year, to kind of let some of those things play themselves out. And when Ashcraft got in there, Burrows has been struggling, but Ashcraft get in there, blows the doors off of the place, and he could maybe get a start next time, something that you had mentioned to me previously off air. But I mean, I think that it is kind of a good way to get these guys a little bit more of a taste, because especially with Burrows and Ashcraft, their pass to the major leagues have been delayed so much by injury that you're kind of finding out what they have, but just almost like in like micro doses, as opposed to, okay, feet to the fire, coming up here and just letting it, rip the Band-Aid off. I like how they're kind of, choosing this path for them.
Yeah, I think they're the kind of prospects that you can certainly do that with. That you're not anticipating them being your ace, and that you have a feeling they're going to be strong major league pitchers, but you're not hanging so many hopes on them for the future. So that, yeah, you can start the clock on them. Like you said, they're older, so they're really itching. It's time to get them to the major leagues. Someone like a Bubba Chandler, maybe you don't take that. I think he's a starter, and he's going to be a starter until he shows that he's no longer a starter. And so he's not the guy to do that with. But yeah, for the guys you mentioned, absolutely. And of course, yeah, we agree about Carmen Mlodzinski eventually being a very good bullpen arm, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then with Harrington and Ashcraft and Burrows, yeah, there's nothing wrong with using those guys in the long relief role, the Luis Ortiz role. Get them up there, have them as a long reliever, and when they are showing that they're ready for that next step, giving them an opportunity and see where we go from there.
Yeah, because I mean, you have, I mean, even in like a Bubba Chandler, because I mean, that's like a pretty hot button topic at this point in time. I mean, a guy that, kind of maxed out just under 120 innings, something we had mentioned previously, and, kind of what is going to be the max innings limit for him there. You have, Burrows and Ashcraft, two guys that, I mean, pretty much haven't even like touched 100 innings in a season. So, like, what's going to be the limit for them there? And you do have to, look at the beginning of the season and how many innings have to be covered in Major League Baseball, and being able to kind of mix and match. And I still feel like that. I mean, the goal for a lot of these pitchers is to get to the end of the season, to get to the end of the season healthy, to start a regular off season for them. So, I mean, if you can get some of those innings, because I know that, I mean, I kind of poo-pooed the Johan Oviedo idea with him starting as a starter and then going to the bullpen just because of the injury history for him and coming off of an injury, as opposed to guys that had been building up for the past couple of years. I kind of feel like you can do that maybe a little bit more, with an Ashcraft, with a Burrows, getting a spot start here and there. Just because, I mean, if you look at the rotation as it stands right now, I mean, obviously, you don't look for Andrew Heaney to be here, at the end of the season. So that's, another spot in the rotation. If, unfortunately someone would get a little nicked up or whatever, I mean, you have to kind of have all these arms at the ready. Are you looking for coverage of all four major sports leagues? NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL. Look no further than Sportsvival. At Sportsvival, they are dedicated to providing quality sports analysis, up-to-date news, and original content with a focus on draft and prospects, analyzing how teams are built and how franchises evolve through their strategic decisions. Without sports, how would we survive? Sportsvival, proud partners of Bucs in the Basement. For Bubba, I mean, that's another one where I feel like people have already kind of written his story as well. And they've kind of shown that it's like, okay, well, he's a number 2 prospect in baseball and the top pitching prospect and a guy coming in with a lot of kind of like publicity, momentum, and just flair behind him. At the beginning of the season, we did see kind of how Jared Jones came into last season. We also experienced Paul Skeens. So there's, 2 other top pitching prospects, great pedigree. And it's like that to me, it's just, I told you before, if I asked anybody, to say, why is Bubba Chandler ready right now? Well, his stuff's good, and he's a number 2 prospect. And overall, his numbers look good. And I would be like, okay, have you watched him have a start? Have you looked deeper within those numbers? Have you seen, I don't know if people even know that they can do this. If they have StatCast, that there is a way to look up the StatCast game feed for a minor league game. At the end of every, minor league game feed, there's a set of like 6 numbers. And you plug those 6 numbers into what's the normal StatCast game feed, because every, game has a number. It's all organized. And you can kind of see where those pitches are at. I mean, the fastball's playing up. It's looking good. It's hitting towards the zone. He has a changeup. He has a slider. Those ones, I mean, it gets a little bit wild at times. There has been, some problems with walks. And there's been 3 hit by pitches. There's been a wild pitch within his last few games. I mean, I'm not saying, and that's where people would say, well, you're poo-pooing Bubba Chandler and saying he's going to be terrible. And it's just like, no, Bubba Chandler was lights out in a small sample size at the beginning of the season where he was pitching, 2 innings, 4 innings, 4 innings, 4 2/3, and then building up to 5 innings to the point where he had 20 innings. He had a 1.33 ERA, 27 strikeouts, only 6 walks, and a 0.64 whip. In the month of May, and he's got another start coming up here very soon, and I hope he does well. He built up to, because people will look at like built up to innings. Like, yeah, he pitched 6 1/3 innings his last time out, only gave up 1 hit. He gave up 1 hit and he had 2 earned runs. Also had a hit by pitch, 4 walks, and only 5 strikeouts. Like, I looked on Fangraphs, and to me, it was just it stuck out to me that during this last game, his strikeouts per 9 was like a little over a 7, and his walks per 9 was over 5. Like, that's where it's just like, I don't want to see that set up. And I know that people say, well, there'll be bumps in the road. No, I know that there will be bumps in the road, but he's a guy that, yes, he had great numbers at the beginning of the season. Yeah, he still has a 1.46 whip for the month of May and has been walking more guys, striking out less, 3 hit by pitches in the last 2 games, and a wild pitch. Like, to me, I feel like that you have this idea, people have this idea in their mind of what Bubba Chandler is and what Bubba Chandler could be, what Paul Skeens was and is, and what Jared Jones was for the first half of last season, and have just plugged him in. It's almost just like, okay, let's just change the number. Let's just change the names in this story, change it to Bubba from Jones, and this is what you will have. But to me, like, I'm seeing a guy who is at this point in time during the season struggling a little bit and would like to see a couple good starts in a row. Will that guarantee that he'll hit the ground running when he comes up to the majors? No. But I would like to see a guy who is performing well as opposed to a guy who hasn't been. That's just me.
Well, and I'll speak for myself on this. One, I understand people being excited to see him pitch because he is such a high prospect. But MILB.com, .TV exists. You can watch the AAA games. You can watch the indie games if you want to see him pitch. And I know it's different than the major leagues, but if you really have to see Bubba Chandler, then you can watch a lot of his games. And I have watched some of his games, and yeah, I can't wait to see him in Pittsburgh. But I want him here when he's ready. There's a lot more to be gained by letting him develop more and figure out things in AAA than there would be if he was brought up at this point, especially with the offensive struggles of the major league team. And then as it goes forward, we want what's best for him. And I think that the Pirates have this thing of, and this was the criticism under Shelton, is that you bring up guys that are hot at AAA and then play them for a game and sit them for a couple of games. But there's going to be bumps in the road, like you mentioned. But don't bring Bubba Chandler up to the major leagues when he's in the middle of one of those bumpy stretches. Get him hot. Get him on a roll. Get him back to that. Yeah, there's going to be ups and downs, but don't promote him when it's a down thing. Get his confidence sky high. When he's really on fire, then bring him in. And yeah, that's going to go a lot farther. And to double back onto the guys that we were talking about that could bounce between the bullpen and the rotation, when they're doing that, there's nothing wrong with having those guys in the bullpen for a little while, pitching 2, 3, 4 innings in a shot, and then sending them back to Indy. They've already, they have options. Send them back to Indy. Get them stretched out again. Get them back into that rotation. Bring them back up when we need to. These guys, there's nothing wrong with bringing a guy to the major leagues and then deciding he needs a little more time in the minors, or even for convenience. Okay, you're not going to send Skeens down to the minor leagues, but he's also shown that he's a bona fide major leaguer. If these guys can contribute to the team, if we love our prospects, and as Pirate fans, we are very prospect driven, but it has to be a point where winning baseball games is the thing. And no matter how coveted of a prospect some of these guys are and where we want to see them used, if they help win Major League Baseball games and then need sent to the minors so that they can help win more Major League Baseball games, then that's the path to go. I look at all these other teams in a slightly, related way of the Pittsburgh Pirates. For most of my fandom, and certainly almost all of my entire adult life, have been so driven on the history of the team, our storied history, our Hall of Famers, our legends, and all that stuff. Well, how about we make new legends? How about we make new stories? How about we win some games and championships, and now we can focus on the present, and the presentation of the game doesn't have to be stuck in the past. Same kind of thing with these guys. We can win baseball games with them, and if it means that their egos need to get bruised a little bit to go to the minor leagues, deserved or not, even if they're pitching well, like Carmen Mlodzinski, he didn't pitch terrible, but it was time to switch things up a little bit. Let's go to the minor leagues. Let's work on something. Let's freshen some things up. If it's gonna impact in a positive way the rest of the season and these guys in the long term, then yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and the other piece for me is that I feel like Pirates fans' heads are really going to explode if the next call up after this is Carmen Mlodzinski coming back up,
Yeah.
and I don't put that out of the realm of possibilities. And I do know there are these like little catchphrases here, like the service time manipulation and the Super 2, and the Pirates are cheap, so obviously they do this. But then I don't see anybody ever giving me an example of the Pirates manipulating service time and Super 2. Like, they could have manipulated Henry Davis's service time because he didn't have enough at bats, but the team needed offensive, injection, and they brought him up at a time, obviously playing, out of position. And even at that, I wasn't, there's been other teams that have brought people up. People talk about, how good the Brewers are with Wilson Contreras. And it's like, well, what did the Braves do with him to try to get him up here? Well, Wilson Contreras played a little bit in the outfield. Like, people don't mention that. So they didn't manipulate the service time with Henry Davis. They didn't manipulate the service time with Paul Skeens. It could have been argued that, he was ready out of the gate, but to get him to the end of the season and to help manage his innings and do different things, they did not go past that Super 2. They didn't manipulate the service time with Jared Jones. So, that's my thing is, people will go back to, well, they kept McCutchen down in AAA because they said he needed some more at bats. Well, that is so stinking long ago. So that's the other part is on here is I'd like people to maybe get on here at some point in time, like in the comments of when I post this, of like, okay, what makes Bubba Chandler ready? And when was the last time the Pirates actually did this service time manipulation and this Super 2 stuff that was spoken about? And I've heard like maybe O'Neal Cruz
That's what I was
as like a possibility for that. He was hitting, the absolute cover off of the ball. So maybe, but even at that, like, I think I'd have to go back and study that one a little bit more. But then there's maybe two examples over the past 15 years.
Yeah.
So like,
I remember O'Neal Cruz like had the watch thing when he would hit a home run in the minors, and he'd go around second base and look at his watch. And so people were, making a big deal out of that. And yeah, I do think, he had those, 4 games at the end of the previous season. And then they waited till after Father's Day to because I was at the game on Father's Day when they announced that they were going to bring him up the next day. And that was the Jack Sawinski 3-home run game. Seems like forever ago now. But yeah, I think that's the one. I think, with Skeens, undeniable is always the term that comes up for me. And you also know with the new rules that he was likely going to finish first or second for Rookie of the Year, so you were going to lose a year of service time with him anyway. So I do think that their focus with him was always legit and always because they knew that they were going to lose the whole season. Jones is the one that is interesting enough that that's unlike the Pirates ever to really have a hot arm like that and actually break camp with him. And you're right, you make a great point about Henry Davis and not manipulating his service time. But yeah, I think O'Neal Cruz is probably the one that immediately pops to my mind. And even with McCutchen, that was still, he was brought up, in May of that year. So, but there's always that thought too of, because it's accrued service time, we can always send him back down to the minors. They'll do that where they'll send a guy down, they'll option him right before the All-Star break and, let him accrue some, so take some time off the major league roster. To every little bit could help. And since it's a moving target with the Super 2, that you just never know for sure. There's no safe date for it. And when you're talking about innings and putting innings on a young arm, it's a little easier with somebody like Bubba if you were to bring him up and then, okay, well, we want to limit his innings, so let's send him back down, so he can take a little breather and or if you want to frame it a different way and say, so he's fresh for the end of the season, a push at the end of the season. There's a lot of different ways that you can frame that.
Yeah, and I think looking back on this, I do remember this a little bit because I think I did play devil's advocate with O'Neal Cruz during that time because, I mean, if I had people guess what his OPS was in Indy that year, they would probably say it was like off the charts and astronomical. He had a 758 OPS in Indy. So, like, even there, like, I think there's maybe an argument for it, but was some of that media pushed as to what they were showing of O'Neal Cruz? I think I remember that is they would show his home run and him checking his watch, but they wouldn't show the 0 for 4 night with like 3 strikeouts. They would pick and choose. So, I mean, that's just kind of with me. And I know I got to stop licking boots here. I got to stop, trying to be in the bag for Cherington and different stuff like that. But to me, it's just like it's honestly, it's just what I think. It's what I think of like what's going on with these players. And yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know if Bubba's ready. For me, Davis, I think, is maybe hopefully finding something. I like what they're doing with the bullpen. And I mean, just another thing. I mean, I know that we try to be 30 minutes a box, but me and Scott don't do such a great job of that because we talk once a week for this amount of time. We're, in our each other's chats and text messages other than that. But I mean, it's not as easy as people think. It's not as easy because for some reason, like it got me burning again because Day on his Daily Shot brought up Austin Hayes again. And like, why couldn't we just go get Austin Hayes? And then it starts the whole thing again. So Austin Hayes was down on the bottom rung of what people would even accept for Ben Cherington to get. And this is just going to be a quick run through here, guys, just because I don't want to completely bore you. Anthony Santander was the outfielder who everybody wanted, but they knew the Pirates couldn't afford. A 185 batting average and a negative 0.7 WAR. Mr. Santander. Next in line, we had to go get Tyler O'Neill, a 188 batting average and a 0.0 WAR because the guy can play some pretty good defense. Why don't we go get Michael Conforto? A 172 batting average and a negative 0.6 WAR. See, it's easy to pick up, guys. If we couldn't do that, we had to go trade for Luis Robert Jr. and his 190 batting average and 0.4 WAR, and the guy that basically said, who in the world would trade for me now? To me, it's like Christian Walker. You got to go get a real first baseman. 213 batting average and a negative 0.2 WAR. Why didn't we trade for Nathaniel Lowe and his 224 batting average and negative 0.3 WAR? I mean, why aren't we doing this stuff? The job of the GM is so easy. And to me, like, I just had to go on that little bit of a rant there for a second because people would just be like, let's go with Austin Hayes. Me, you, and Connor Williams from whatever site he's even from were the only three people I even like talked even half decently about Austin Hayes. Now everybody wants Austin Hayes. So, like, to me, these are the guys that you wanted if you were the Pirates GM. And none of them are doing well. So,
they make
like,
Tommy Pham look like a steal.
Yeah. And here's the crazy part is Tommy Pham, when he's actually playing what he should have been picked up by a team to do, if he was going to be picked up by a major league team to do for the month of May, actually has a higher WRC plus than the hot hitting Brian Reynolds. His WRC plus at this point in time, I just looked at it, was like around like a 91 for May. Brian Reynolds is sitting like an 85 for May. So it's like kind of weird when guys actually play the roles that they should play. We saw it with Yasmani Grandal last year when he kind of became like a little bit of the backup catcher and wasn't playing every day and kind of got hot and was rejuvenated because guys that age can't play every day like that. So yeah, Tommy Pham, I'm not saying – Tommy Pham is anything great, but if Canario continues to hit and Tommy Pham is playing once, maybe twice a week, like that's how those old guys who are younger than me are meant to be used. And that's where you can kind of find success for them. So yes, not defending the Tommy Pham signing, but if it was up to a lot of people, we would have spent $20 million on Santander and $18 million on Christian Walker, and then would be complaining that they weren't hitting and the Pirates ruined them. So it's just something that's kind of been on my mind because that's the difference. And that's like the problem is with some of those contracts, it's not going to affect those teams because they can just kind of like make up the ground in other spots. Yeah, I mean, we have to go get a Gavin Sheets, who the Padres picked up on a minor league deal and now has like I think I saw it the other day because I actually like Gavin Sheets because he was a former White Sox, follow him because of my wife and my brother-in-law. And I think he's about a 0.6 WAR, has about 10 home runs for the Padres this year. And they got him on a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. So
we had Trey Cabbage in our hands and we let him go.
Now I see the changes in